All right, we're going to look at price floors. No, not the minimum wage. Other people have done that. I have too. So that's dealt with elsewhere. But that is a price floor where you declare a legal minimum to something, and you only worry about it or rejoice in it, depending on your opinion, if it's above the market equilibrium price. If it's not above, doesn't matter. Don't worry about it, and that may be good. All right, so instead of the minimum wage, where the market that is relevant would be labor, unskilled labor, let's look at crops. Okay, this is an area where there are price floors in agriculture. All right, so we'll move over to our graph and look generically at crop X. Okay, and we see here that 150 tons per year would be demanded and supplied if we let the price be at the equilibrium, but I chose not to clutter up my graph with this number since it doesn't pertain to anything that we do, but we see that the minimum declared at $120 per ton is above this price here that would be the market clearing price if we left things alone. All right, so if we do nothing other than just declare a minimum price that's higher than it would be in a pure market setting, we end up with surplus initially. A lot of frustrated sellers who would like to be selling 260 tons per year at the $120 per ton minimum price. But the consumers out there saying, no, at that price, I know you'd love to be selling this much to 260, but at that price, I only want 68. Okay, so if that's all you do, you initially, I keep saying initially because the producers are going to wise up. If they keep producing 260 and they can only sell 68, and they've got 192 tons per year left over just sitting around rotting or on the black market, and they're eventually going to wise up and not produce more than they can sell. But anyway, initially, until they discover that there will be a surplus, once they do cut production back in the legal market, there probably will be black markets. Why? Well, because at this minimum price, the cost to produce another ton is only $53 a ton. So we're looking at a $67 a ton difference between what some marginal buyer, some additional sales could fetch, and the additional cost of a lot less than that as an incentive to do the black market. So we'll neglect that fact other than to keep it in the back of our mind as a reason that this isn't good. All right, so we produce only 120, and the amount that's efficient to produce is 150. By efficient, I mean the incremental cost at that level. Okay, and that's what demand reflects. Incremental supply is incremental cost, demand is incremental benefit. At a quantity of 150 tons per year, an additional ton would cost a little bit more than an additional ton would be worth to somebody else. So that's where we stop. The 150th ton per year just barely yields enough benefit to somebody out there to overcome the opportunity cost of providing that 150th ton per year. All right, so we get area A is what we call a deadweight loss. From 68 tons per year to 150 tons per year, the additional value is more than the additional opportunity cost. Okay, so it's like leaving money sitting on the table. If we would produce another 82 tons per year, we would derive the difference between these two lines, this area of this triangle that my finger is outlining. Okay, so it's money sitting on the table. We leave it sitting there. We call it a deadweight loss, area A. I'm going to put up a piece of paper in a little bit that shows the calculation, but basically you're going to find the area of this triangle to find out the annual loss to society from producing only 68 tons per year as opposed to 150. All right, so the government declares this minimum price, and they hardly ever go, oops, and say, oh, never mind, sorry, mistake, black markets, no, frustrated sellers, not good. What typically happens is something else is done to sustain the alleged wisdom of this initial action at declaring this minimum price. And one of those could be, and often has been, something called a price support. Now, as the term implies, support, it means that there's going to be some additional purchasing to support the price to keep it from falling through surplus from below 120. All right, so ultimately that means in this case, which is probably bigger than it usually is, the 260 versus 68, it's probably larger percentage-wise than the usual amount of surplus. And again, it's easy to see on the graph, and so there it is. So the government, as taxpayers, are going to have to purchase 192 tons per year so that the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied of 260 at 120 tons per year. Okay, and that's called a price support. Okay, so now the amount produced is going to be Q sub S. Okay, and beyond 150, the efficient level, the additional cost is more than the additional benefit. Okay, so now we have area B as a deadweight loss. Okay, now in this case, it's not money sitting on the table. In this case, it's taking away from the amount of benefit to society that was realized if we had stopped at 150 tons per year. Okay, so from 150 to 260, that last 110 tons per year, the supply line indicates that the additional cost of each ton is more than the additional value to somebody out there. So we suffer this as a loss. Again, find the area of this triangle, that's the loss to society per year for overproduction, and I'll put the actual calculation up in just a minute towards the end of my remarks so that you can get it down if you want to. All right, so what about this deadweight loss at B? It assumes something that may not be true in the case of the price support. Right, this segment of the demand line from 68 to 260, that's the value of the last 192 tons per year, the 192 tons per year that we taxpayers purchase and do something with. Store them somewhere, put them in school lunches, send them overseas for famine relief, whatever. Okay, that's what this line reflects, the marginal value of those last 192 tons per year. If we put them all to their highest and best use, as indicated by the demand line from 68 to 260, then B is the deadweight loss from producing 260. But it could be larger. Why could it be larger? Well, if we take that 192 tons per year and put it in storage somewhere and a bunch of rats eat it, who knows whatever happens to it, we give it away. You know, some folks are out there that are interested in buying X, but they're not willing to pay very much. Maybe some of them will get their hands on it. So the bottom line is, with a price support, the deadweight loss could be much bigger than B. Okay, this is a minimum deadweight loss with the price support mechanism for avoiding the surplus if we just mandate the price and then step back and leave it alone. All right, so what if we regret having to buy 192 tons per year or more? Okay, because over time the supply might increase if this is a very profitable price, probably will. We run out of places to store it all. What are we going to do if we still don't want to go, oops, and just repeal all this and say just go back to the market? Well, there's another way to handle it, and that's called a price guarantee approach. And with the price guarantee approach, we just say, okay, you producers of X, you're eventually going to get 120 tons per year. Now, you may not get it when you sell your crop, but you'll get it from us taxpayers. We'll make up the difference. Okay, so the sellers say, okay, we trust the government, we trust the taxpayers. We're going to get 120 tons per year. Okay, we're going to therefore produce our 260 tons per year. It's going to all go out on the market, and we're going to sell it for as much as we can sell that much for. Here we are at this point here. Okay, the demand line for crop X tells us that if there's 260 tons per year out there, and there will be, based on the guarantee of the 120 tons per year, the market will clear at a price of 22, price to the consumer, key sub C, price to the consumer. See, the price to the consumer with the support is 120, right? You got to compete with the taxpayers to buy the crop to keep the price at that level. But the price guarantee, which is one advantage of it, it's good for poor people, right? Right? For the poor people that rely on this crop, maybe X is rice or something. A lot of countries, that's the main item that folks eat. Okay, so the price guarantee will subsidize the poor at least. Price to the consumer will be a lot lower. The price guarantee means that us taxpayers are on the hook for $98 per ton per year. Okay, we've got to make up this difference, right? The price sold at is going to be $22. The producer is going to say, you promised 120, that's all I could get on the market. You owe me the difference. $98 times 260 is the cost to the taxpayer. Again, I'll put that up, calculations up here in a minute. And in fact, I guess I'll do that right now while I continue to talk about this a little bit more. Okay, so here are all the calculations that were made, that were shown, but not written down. Just I think it's kind of boring to to be scribbling equations up. But there they are. Okay, so with the mandate only, okay, the price to the consumer is the price mandated, 120. The deadweight loss is area A, and here's the calculation for area A. Okay, the 120 minus 53. Okay, where does that come in? Okay, that's the one side of this triangle, 120 minus 53. And then the other side of the triangle is the 150 minus 68. Okay, so base times height divided by 2 is 2747, the actual size of the deadweight loss. All right, so if we move on to the price support, area B, okay, 120 minus 22, okay, 120 minus 22 is the one side of the triangle, 260 minus 150 is the other side of the triangle, divide by 2. Area B is 5390 per year, and given away some of what we gained if we had stopped at 150. And then the taxpayer cost is, hey, we've got to buy the what would otherwise be a surplus. We taxpayers, okay, so 120 minus 68. Oops. I'm sorry. The 260 minus 68. Why did I say 120? 260 minus 68. Okay, times the 120, right? We taxpayers have to pay the price that we mandated, okay, for the amount that would otherwise be a surplus. And let's see, okay, so what quantity, what dollar amount is that I put? Oh, $23,040 per year to us taxpayers, plus transportation, plus storage, right? Because we bought all this stuff, okay, which is a plus. It can be a plus. We could send it over for famine relief or help out with school lunches, but at least initially we've got to put it somewhere, so that is an additional cost to taxpayers. If we move on to the price guarantee, we see that the price to the consumer is not the mandated 120. It's all the way down here at 22. Okay, so the deadweight loss then would be area B. Not a minimum in this case. This is the actual deadweight loss because at a price of 22, all the folks represented by this piece of the demand line do go and purchase X, okay, and derive value from that. Okay, so there's no surplus to buy. All the stuff that's made is sold to the person who values it more than that price of piece of C at $22. Okay, and so the deadweight loss is the same. This was a minimum for the support. This is the actual for the guarantee. And then the taxpayer cost would be 260 tons per year are going to cost us taxpayers the difference between the 122 promised and the 22 actually collected out in the market.